But most of the time, we see some people in trouble with their business. It's complete chaos. They come in and they'll have a big project worth of backup work to do. And it's clear that they have no systems in their business as far as their financials go. And that happens a lot when people go into business. They think, oh, well, I can handle, reconciling the checkbook and paying the bills. But when they're doing their business, their gifts are not in accounting. And that, they don't know what they don't know.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is a proud veteran of the United States Air Force and has worked in the accounting field for over 20 years. She is the founder of Bottom Line Accounting Pros, and I am so very happy to have her on the podcast today. Vicki Lynch, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great. I'm so excited. We've had lots of conversations about your journey, and I'm excited about having those stories shared with our listener because every time I speak to you, I seem to learn something new, some interesting insight, and really inspiration. So I'm excited about it.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy. You inspire me too. I listen to this podcast all the time, so I'm very, very excited to be with you.
Thank you. That's great. Well, I appreciate that. And before we get into some of these questions I have for you today, I'd love for you to share your journey leading up to where you are today.
Well, I've been in accounting for quite a long time. I started as a budget analyst working for a Department of Defense. And then I got out of the Air Force, worked as a civilian for a while, and we moved to Shreveport, Louisiana. And I was the investment accountant at Barksdale Credit Union. And then my daughter was born 3 months premature. So I kind of had to look for some alternative ways to work. My husband started a chimney cleaning business. He's a firefighter. He was Air Force as well. Got a civilian job doing the same thing he did in the Air Force. So when we moved here, some opportunity in Shreveport because there's a lot of startup businesses here. So we decided to start the chimney cleaning business. And then I kind of inherited a couple of accounts and it's just grown exponentially from there. Started in 2000 and we rebranded because after reading the E-Myth, I wanted to kind of take myself out of the business when I named it. So we rebranded to Bottom Line Accounting in 2015. And we've just grown. I joined BNI in 2013. I feel like that kind of pushed my growth a bit too. But I have a full-time staff accountant and a part-time administrative person.
Wonderful.
So,
now, how have you brought your experience in the U.S. Air Force to what you're doing today?
Well, processes.
Nice.
Regiment, everything's kind of lined out. And in the Air Force, you have to have a routine for everything. And that was one of the things I loved about the military is there is a routine for how you do everything. Standard operating procedures, just preach, when you're in the military. So I just kind of carried that over to and developing my routine for dealing with my clients. Each client is different, but there are certain things that are done every single month for each client. So we just kind of standardized those procedures and made our own book. And so I kind of that's why I like the pure bookkeeping thing because everything's the same. Now, your approach to it anyway.
Yeah. So you're a lover of systems and And
Yes.
that comes a lot from the U.S. Air Force. I'm really curious your perspective on business in general, the clients that you have when you come from this highly system-oriented mindset, which, talk a little bit about how that's helped you in your business and what you see in your clients' businesses that, there's probably a gap, I would imagine.
Yes. I mean, when we see most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, we see some people in trouble with their business. It's complete chaos. They come in and they'll have a big project worth of backup work to do. And it's clear that they have no systems in their business as far as their financials go. And that happens a lot when people go into business. They think, oh, well, I can handle, reconciling the checkbook and paying the bills. But when they're doing their business, I mean, their gifts are not in accounting, and that, they don't know what they don't know. So when we see them, they're at full tilt jungle madness. And so we find that it's better to give them this process and get them on a regimented process of routine and catch them up, and that way they can look at financials every month, and then once they get out of the chaos, they can actually see the importance and the information that those financial statements will give them. Now, not everybody wants to they say they want the process, but not everybody wants to really buy into the process. So that's where we've kind of had to decide, if we can't get you on process, then maybe, we're not the best fit for you, So I agree with the concept that, it has to be a good fit on both sides. They kind of have to buy into our philosophy, and, we kind of meet them where they are and then bring them into a monthly routine that will benefit them. So some more meeting in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to a couple of things. I think you're setting a standard for the type of client that is going to work great with you and get the most value from working with you, but as well that you're going to get the most value, and you have a way of thinking and a way of doing something that if you don't do it that way, well, you're kind of working against yourself, really.
Right.
And I think it's a powerful place to be, to have gone and done that thinking and to know. And yet you have this opportunity to really help businesses and business owners with this systems mindset to help them improve, get away from the chaos. Yeah. Now, like you say, some people aren't interested in that. I'm curious how those conversations have gone. I'm curious on two angles. When have they gone? What has happened when those conversations have gone really well and someone who's not system driven or system thinking have moved to your way of thinking and the alternative way where they don't actually take it up, or it's a struggle?
Well, I mean, it took me a long time to get to where I could, because, when you're first starting out and you're a one-man show like I was, and I was, raising kids and just trying to build a little business that turned into something completely different than what I thought it would. But at first, a lot of people just take whoever they can get. But after I'd grown, I really felt like, especially when I hired a full-time staff accountant, in the theme of growth, we had to, my business had to come first. So I had to ask myself, what do I want, and would I want my staff accountant to have to put up with? I wouldn't ask her to do some of the things that I had done in the past to keep the client happy. So, but that was such a healthy thing for me to do, was to really say, hey, I've got to have some standards and values, and who is the ideal client for us? So those conversations, sometimes they go well, sometimes not so well, but each time that we've had them, and we try to be as gracious as possible and, hopefully be able to recommend someone else to work with them. Not always the case, but it's a matter of, we're intentional and we want to be the best fit, and we want a client that's going to be the best fit for us. So if they're not receptive, then we just say, it's not a good fit. And then they have to kind of go find someone else. But it's been empowering though, because and even then, when I find when we honor ourselves with those boundaries, 3 people show up afterward that buy into our philosophy completely.
Isn't that crazy how that works? I mean, it's like you do something that's totally unrelated, but in a way related, and yet it opens up. There's like an energy that gets released or something happens, but often, and I think the listener would likely look for, if the listener was to look, right, there'd be times in life where it's like, you make a big decision and all of a sudden it opens doors. Or
yes, and
closes
it's hard.
them.
It's hard to have those conversations, and sometimes, it's never easy. But I will say this: I've been at this long enough that I kind of can feel in my gut at this point if there's certain behaviors that happen, if there's boundaries being crossed from the beginning, then it's not a good fit. And so, to be honest, now I recognize if I'm saying yes when I really mean no, I have to reevaluate that. You can't concede your boundaries. And I think accountants and bookkeepers in general really we all have issues with that. I'm not sure if it's a perfectionist thing or a value thing, but we don't charge enough, or we go the extra mile for clients because of the detail of the work that we do. I say it's an intimate relationship that we have with our clients, because it really is. And sometimes it's discounted by the client. I think Michael Gerber described that as the bookkeeper or the accountant being invisible until something goes wrong. But those conversations are definitely something that I still have anxiety having them. But in the end of the day, when you honor what you feel is best for your business, good things will happen. And that has happened every single time. Once, we've had that hard conversation and we've honored our principles and our values and the kind of client that we want. And once we just say that it's not a good fit, then we get 3 people that are a good fit.
I think it's a great opportunity for anyone that's listening right now. If you haven't written out your values, what you stand for, this is a great opportunity to do it. And new things will open up as a result. And don't make it a difficult thing. It's just simply write down, what is it that you wish to have in your life? Right. And what does that look like? What does it sound like? What's that perfect client or ideal client look like in terms of their character and their values? And so what's one that's big for you, with, as an example, that maybe a few of our listeners can borrow from you? What's one of the values, like you say, this is the type of person that I want to work with, their characteristic, if you will?
Well, we value like authenticity and integrity, because that's sort of what we put out in this office. And I think, we desire for them to be successful. So I think, we convey that this, relationship that we have with them is really symbiotic. Their success is also tied to ours. So I feel like we want people that will see us as a part of their business. And because we are, we're very involved in helping, those financials will help them make really good decisions. And we convey that by, we've worked into our monthly packages. Depending on what level they are, they get either a monthly or quarterly meeting. They have that opportunity to come in. So I guess I really feel like that's a lot of intention and proactivity. That's what we want. And that's what we strive to do ourselves, is be very intentional and very proactive. So those are the kind of clients that I find that are the best fit.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's the type of clarity that I'm sure those conversations when you're talking to people who are prospective to working with you or current clients that are working with you, this is some of the language that you're using, and you're going to come across as a person that wants to be a partner in their organization and be a part of it and help them grow their business. I mean, and that's essentially what they're buying. I mean, when you get to the real source, it's not the bookkeeping they want or the accounting that they want. They want to be successful. They want to have peace of mind. They want to feel like someone else has their back. So I love that. And I think it likely will show up in your website and your language. And if you're not clear about those things, there's no way that it can show up. So it does take a little bit of thinking and time put into the business, which has a question come up for you is, we've talked a lot about eMyth Bookkeeper, and one of the concepts in the world of eMyth, and for the listener, we talk a lot about the eMyth, but if you're not familiar with that, Michael Gerber's eMyth, the eMyth Bookkeeper, is a great book for you to pick up and read. But this concept of working on your business versus in your business. So how did you find the time to work on your business when you were getting started?
Well, in 2014, I moved my business out of my house, out of my home office, and into kind of a cohabitation. Me and a friend of mine from BNI, and she was also in a profit club group with me. We went in together on office space. And then another BNI friend of ours came to us, had a bunch of books, and we kind of picked one, and we started a little accountability group. And we picked the eMyth to start with. And so twice a month we would get together and go through that workbook and keep each other accountable. And one of the things that I took away from that, which I absolutely loved that book, and it spoke so much to me, and I saw a lot of myself in Sarah, that being intentional, writing things down or saying things out loud, there's so much power in that. So I wanted to make sure that I had a vision, because I don't think I'd had one really before then. We were just working and getting by, but I really had a passion for small business, and I wanted to channel that. And I wanted to make sure that I was building a business that was going to convey the things that I wanted for other small businesses and project that out there. So it started with my staff accountant said, you realize every time you give a talk that you talk about bottom line peace of mind. I said, I did not realize that. She said, you say it all the time. So, we looked at the different websites available, the domain names and stuff. And so I came up with bottom line accounting. And then I have a lucky bamboo on my desk. So the bamboo in our logo stands for health, wealth, and longevity, because that's what we want for our clients and ourselves. I picked the colors of the logo. Specifically, the blue is dependability and trust and stability. And then the green is also growth and wealth and health. So I was very intentional when I rebranded. There's a lot of intention behind that. Our hashtag is bottom line peace of mind. So, we have bamboo all over this office. So I feel like there's so much power, and I am so indebted to my accountability partners, Cheryl and Tommy, for that period of time that we spent reading books and keeping each other accountable, and how we're going to change and grow our businesses. And all of us have done that. It's been really, really amazing.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of messages in there and a lot of inspiration. Really, any one of us can do anything that we want to in our life. And it really, the key to getting there is you got to be clear about, well, what is that anything look like? And you got really clear about what you wanted to create in your business and what you wanted it to be about and who you wanted to serve and how you wanted to serve them. And that so inspiring to see that now that's leading lots of decisions in your business. And I'm excited for your current and future clients, because like bottom line peace of mind, That's it. That's what's on tap over here, folks. And look, you deliver that. That goes, I mean, it sends ripples into the businesses that you work with and into the lives of the people that work in those businesses. And I mean, we could talk about the ripple effect that goes out. I mean, you're making such a big difference in your community in a small way that leads to such a big way. And it started with you in that group.
Yes, yeah, and I'm so grateful, and I think all of us have started with that point that, I mean, when you sit down and think about how you put yourself out in the world and it's not really even about like money. It's about like, what do I want to give? What do I want this business to be? Because when you give, I think you're saying to the universe, I have enough. But then in response to that, abundance comes in different ways, whether it's meeting people or money or, opportunity that you really probably wouldn't have had otherwise. It all kind of goes together. And what you ask for, you get. So that's why you have to be very intentional about what you want and also be careful of how you say things.
Yeah. Yes. No doubt. I'm just thinking.
You get more of something you don't want if you talk about what you don't want all the time.
Absolutely. I have a very, I won't name this person because, he's very good friend, mentor, all sorts of stuff, but said that the first 5 years of life with new children is like living through a meat grinder. And I often, because I have young children, I often think about, I tell people, the first 5 years are like a meat grinder. And it's like, you know what? It's probably not a good way for me to be expressing the way that it is, because guess what? It sometimes occurs as though it is like living through a meat grinder. And yet who's creating that, right? It's what I've said. It's what I've created through this conversation. Started as a joke, but literally the words that we use matter.
They do.
And so being clear about what we want, love it, and also watching our language and how we're asking for things to happen in our life. This is what shows up. Now, have some other questions for you. A lot actually, but I probably won't be able to ask them all. But this one, just sort of popped into my head as we were talking, because we're talking about, hey, you're creating your business. There's this can-do attitude, and there are people out there, and I've met them and worked with them where it's like, it's not working for them. They're not able to. It's like, why can you have things working while others are not? So when we talk about, you're starting your business, getting clients, how did you get your clients?
Truly, it was really just word of mouth referral, every bit of it.
So share, how did that, did you all of a sudden just, some people started calling you out of the blue? Like, hey,
someone that we knew, they worked in an accounting office or a tax office, I believe it was. And they had somebody who'd done some bookkeeping for some people, and they moved away, and they still had those clients. They were associated with the tax office, but they really couldn't service them anymore. So they asked if, I was doing the books for my husband's chimney cleaning business, and they asked if I would be interested in taking these 5 clients on.
How did they know you?
She was a fire department wife. Her husband worked with my husband.
Got it. So the people. So we in the Successful Bookkeeper resources, we have this little complimentary training program, right? And the first one is the 7x5, 7 strategies to grow your bookkeeping business. And the first one is people right? So
yes,
the first clients that you're going to get are from the people that are in your network, but they have to know who you are and know something about you, that there's those, they have to know that you're good at it. They have to know a bunch of stuff. So how did you get that out into the world? Well, that's a direct, direct path, right? It's like, they know who you were. They know that there was a business. And they knew that you were doing these books. How else did you find business?
Well, I think that for the longest time, got referrals from other clients, from the clients that I had. And then, of course, my husband, we sold the chimney cleaning business 5 years after we started it, and he became a real estate agent. So, I mean, I think just getting to know people in the community, Shreveport, Bossier, where we live, and I'm not sure this is still a true statistic, but 2 years ago, it was the number one place in the United States to be an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of small business here. So it's just sort of getting out and getting to know people. The game changer for me, though, what took me to the next level was joining a networking group.
You mentioned BNI. That was one of my questions, actually. So it's one of the strategies is networking. Tell us about that journey.
Well, I joined a small networking group. It wasn't BNI, but it was still pretty powerful, and it was the same premise, but it didn't have the structure that BNI did, and I like structure.
Yes.
So we had a business coach that came to our networking group, and he and I kind of hit it off, and he invited me to visit his BNI group, and I loved it. I just felt at home with the structure of it, and the whole giver's gain philosophy. That's sort of my life philosophy. If you give, then you will, receive good things when you give with a joyful heart. So I love that. And so I ended up switching. And I also did a couple of classes with this business coach. He had a group class called Profit Club that we did. So just getting to know people in the business community was extremely helpful for me, and has really, like I said, it was a game changer. Plus, I mean, I didn't get a ton of referrals, when I first started doing the networking, but I found that it made me accountable to my business, standing up, thinking about what I was going to say and what I was going to market. And it kind of helps form the direction of things, how you want to go. And again, we get back to the power of what you ask for. You're standing up and asking for certain kinds of referrals every week. The first couple of months that my staff accountant, Reagan, she and my husband are in the same BNI group, and she got up and was so excited. And it's like, we help people in chaos. Well, you know what we got? A lot of chaos. So we actually talk about our 60 seconds with each other and talk about the things that we want. I mean, the chaos stuff was a very big learning experience, it's really be careful what you ask for, but it's also a lot of power in being able to market yourself. A lot of people go into BNI and they can't, they're very nervous. They don't want to talk in public. And I've seen people be able to transform how they present themselves through getting up every week doing a 60 seconds.
It's changed a lot of lives. I've got to say, I've spoken to hundreds of bookkeepers, and many of them I've come across will say BNI is one of those experiences that changed their life, got them into speaking, got them added to their confidence. And it really shaped, like you have said, shaped the direction of their business. It's a fantastic organization. It's definitely a winner if you find the right group and you invest the time and energy and cost and all that good stuff. But it's a long run game that will really help your business.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. Now, you have talked a little bit with me about pricing and the challenges that you faced pricing your business. Can you share a little bit about that?
Okay, well, in accounting, there's a two-tiered thing going on. Number one, that you get on the client side, especially if they're in chaos and they're coming in with a year's worth of bookkeeping or 3, and I mean, you want to see them get help. I always get torn with wanting to see them get healthy and let's get all that done and get them caught up. But we have to charge for our time. And so that kind of is, projects have been, well, I think everyone makes mistakes when they price the projects. Now we get a retainer up front for a certain amount of hours, until we get more money when we finish that. when we get the other retainer, we'll start working, because, we want to dive in and get them all caught up. And so that it does become a big issue for people. And I know plenty of accountants that have taken losses on big projects like that, So the monthly packages, what we strive to get them to, we kind of just did like a startup package, and then a next step package, which we call the essential package, and then the growth package, and then the profitable package. And we make it customizable to the client. I have been all over the internet looking for like a formula for value pricing. And sometimes it's hard to get clients to see the value in what you do if they're not looking at their financial statements. So, it really, we have to stress to the client that this is what you're getting. They look at, it's a bunch of paper, and it's not like a thing that they can do anything with. They're paying for our time and expertise. So I think there's the two-tiered thing that has to go on is you have to have the confidence in yourself and your abilities and experience as an accountant or bookkeeper, and make sure that you're charging a price that's reflective of your experience and the time. But I do think that, people do better with monthly packages because it's like a bill. They can budget for it. So that's sort of where we strive with the packages. We want them to be able to budget for the tasks, that are going to be taken over by us. And then we also want to build in a little meeting time in there, because the financial statements are going to do them any good if they're not looking at them. Growth won't happen if they aren't aware of where the money's going, how much they're bringing in, what's more bang for their buck. What services can they streamline? Some services, what is costing them money versus what is making them money, because really it is all about the bottom line. So we want them to look at the financials.
Yeah, and you've mentioned to me about you have a process that determines whether a client is looking at the reports that you're putting together.
Yes. If our clients that schedule regular quarterly and monthly meetings that's available in their package, they schedule those meetings, we know they're looking. Because if they're not, those clients, they'll want to come in when there's an emergency for them.
Right.
Like something doesn't look right and I'm trying to get this loan. Oh, okay. Because it's important for us to make sure we have that feedback. And I feel sometimes we have to really push for them because we need their feedback. It's a collaborative relationship, whether they're working in QuickBooks Online with us or whether we have them on desktop. But it is a very collaborative thing. And those financial statements, it's kind of like us holding up a mirror to them because they reflect everything that's going on in the business.
It's fantastic. I love it. I'm sure we could have a very long conversation, and I know we're going to have you back to ask, because I have more questions as we're talking, more questions come up. But this has been fantastic. I would love for you to share, if there's our listener wants to learn more about you or connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can certainly look me up on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We have Bottom Line Accounting Pros page on Facebook, but we also have a website, and that's bottomlinepros.net. And then anyone can email me at Vicki with an I, Vicki at bottomlinepros.net.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Vicki, on behalf of all of our listeners, I want to thank you so much for generously giving us your wisdom and learnings and some really, really great ideas for growing and being successful in their bookkeeping businesses. This has been great.
Well, thank you, Michael. I was really honored to be on.
Beautiful. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's guest and get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.